Paul Harvey is one of my more favorite resources, along with peanuts, as you know. I have a variety of philosophical people that I refer to. But Paul Harvey told a 3-year-old boy who went to his grocery store with his mommy, and before they entered the grocery store, the mommy said to the boy, "Now you're not going to get any chocolate chip cookies today, so don't even ask." She put him in the cart, and away they went down the aisles of the store. And he was doing just fine until they came to the cookie aisle. And seeing all those chocolate chip cookies was just more than the little boy could resist. And he said, "Mommy, can I have some chocolate chip cookies?" And Mommy said, "I told you, don't even ask. You're not going to get any, and that's all. Sit down and be quiet." Well, they continued down the aisles, but in their search for certain products, she had to backtrack. And behold, she ended up back again at the cookie aisles. And they went through the same thing, and the mommy was really quite disturbed, and she went through the same, "Don't ask again." So finally they arrived at the checkout counter, and the little guy was kind of brilliant. He figured out this was his last chance before they got out of the store. And so he stood up in his seat and he shouted with his loud little voice, "In the name of Jesus, can I have some chocolate chip cookies?" Well, everybody in the line laughed and applauded, and so Mommy had no choice but to get him some chocolate chip cookies. But not just one package. The other shoppers were so moved by the boy's outburst that he and his mother went home with 23 packages of chocolate chip cookies. That's a Paul Harvey story, and I loved it. Amazing, isn't it? What happens when you ask in the name of Jesus? You might even get 23 packages of chocolate chip cookies. You see, the little boy experienced much the same thing as the boy in our reading this morning experienced. They both experienced an unexpected miracle. Looking at this message, we see that Jesus is on the hill with all of those people who need to be fed. And Andrew says, "You know, there's this little boy, and he has these 5 loaves of barley and 2 fish. And Jesus takes these loaves and the fishes, and he feeds 5,000 people." Both boys experienced an unexpected miracle. The boy didn't expect to get his chocolate chip cookies, and yet he went home with 23 packages. The boy with the fish and loaves offered the lunch he'd brought for that day in order to help feed the 5,000 people. And that was the real miracle. What Jesus did with that boy's unselfish act of sharing isn't necessarily the bread and the fish. It's the unselfish act of sharing that Jesus used for a miracle. You know, that's really quite a story, and it's quite simple. Jesus and the disciples were traveling, and they were headed from one place to another, and they had just crossed the Sea of Galilee, and they had gone through Tiberias. Jesus is at the height of his popularity, and people were coming out of the woodwork to see him. And they were hoping for some sign, some miracle that would point to him as the Messiah. You see, they really wanted to believe. And my friends, today in our society, we have people that are waiting to see or to hear some sign. They really want to believe. 70% of our population, and you're going to hear this figure quite often, 70% of our population do not affiliate with any religion and do not go to any church. 80% of those proclaim a belief in God, but they're waiting. They're waiting for a sign. They're waiting for a reason to believe. And God calls you, and God calls me to be that sign so that they can participate in a faith. You see, the crowds in Tiberias were like they were in the other towns, getting larger and larger. And as Jesus and the disciples headed up to the mountain from Tiberias, the crowds followed him. Philip was familiar with that area, and he would have known where to find food. So Jesus decides to test Philip. He says, where are we going to buy enough bread to feed all these people? And Philip was a bit flummoxed by that. Not only was there no store or no bakery that would have enough bread in the immediate sight, there weren't any that he knew of around. And Philip looked at the size of the crowd, and his adding machine in his head started clicking. And he told Jesus, Lord, even if we can find enough bread somewhere, it would take more than 6 months' wages to feed the whole crowd. And then they'd only get a little bit. Then Andrew stepped up and he said, Lord, here's this boy with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. I know it's not much. And Jesus probably chuckled at the moment, and he looked from Andrew to Philip, and he told them to have people sit down. After giving thanks, he began to distribute the food to the people. And after everyone had their fill, Jesus collected 12 baskets of leftovers. It's amazing, isn't it? What God can do with a very little. Amazing what God will do in this community with us, even though we are very little. All throughout Jesus' ministry, the significant miracles, sometimes even his most significant teachings, come as a result of an interruption on his journey, a change in direction perhaps. They come as a chance encounter. And that's what this story is about in a way. It is a chance encounter for the little boy to be a part of that miracle, a chance to help. A lot of people think that they have blown their only chance in life. They think that they've blown their chance for success, for fulfillment, and worst of all, they think maybe they've blown their chance or their opportunities for forgiveness. These people don't think they have any chances left, that God could never forgive them. Their actions are just too horrible for God to ever forgive. those ideas have become obstacles in their lives and obstacles in their faith. Well, let's look at it. Andrew saw the possibilities. That's the way he was wired. You might call him Mr. Possible. He was always looking at the possibilities. He was the positive voice. He's sort of like the old German schoolmaster who, when he entered the classroom of his boys that he was teaching, he would come in and he would doff his hat and he would bow down to his students and he would welcome them. One of the students one time asked him why he went through that ritual, and he said, because you never know what someday one of these boys will become. And he was right. One of his students was Martin Luther. Andrew did not know what he was really doing when he brought that boy to Jesus, but he saw the possibilities. Now the little boy saw an opportunity. He didn't have much to offer, but he brought what he had, and he gave everything that he had. He saw an opportunity and a chance to help. He offered himself, and he offered his gift, and we know the rest of the story. In Israel, there are two major bodies of water. In the north, there is the beautiful Sea of Galilee, and it's fed by the Jordan River. And it flows from Mount Hermon southward through the country. This body of water symbolizes the richness of the land. The area supports a very productive fishing industry. All around there are fields that produce abundantly from the giving waters of life of the Jordan and into the sea. There is even a large tourist trade built up in that area, just like any body of water we have here in the United States. But as the Jordan River leaves the Sea of Galilee and it follows through over this productive land, but then within a short distance, 60 miles, it feeds another body of water known as the Dead Sea. And it's called the Dead Sea for a reason. There is no greenery, no fish, no growth. Nothing lives in this area. Salt and minerals encrust everything that touches the water. What happened to that water within the distance of that few short miles? Actually, nothing happened to the water. It is in fact because the Dead Sea has no outlet. The water from the Jordan is dumped into the salt and mineral basin. Whatever flows in there stays in there. Whatever it receives, it keeps for himself. There's a lesson there. We can let things flow into us, and we can keep it here, and it will stay here, and it will become stagnant like the Dead Sea. You see, we receive so many blessings from God's gracious hand, but sometimes we're like Philip, and all we see are the obstacles of life. Oh, we can't do that because there's an obstacle in our way. But sometimes we're like Andrew and the boy. We see the possibilities and we turn them into the opportunities to help. And that's the way we were created. That's how we're supposed to respond. Like the little boy in the message. if we receive love, we have to give love. If we receive financial blessings, we have to share our bounty with the less fortunate. If we are blessed, we have to share those blessings in return. When we do, we're like the Jordan River flowing into the seas of Galilee. When we don't, we're like the Dead Sea, and the gift dies, and something within us dies. Dorothy Price was listening to a Christian radio station as she drove to the grocery store one morning, and the person was talking about kindness on the radio, and he said, I wonder how many of you who are listening to me on your car radio at this time are thinking about being kind while you drive. Being kind while you drive. Well, Dorothy began thinking about what he was saying. And a few blocks away, she saw a woman waiting at an intersection trying to get out into the flow of traffic. And she knew this woman, pardon me, was going to have a hard time getting out into the traffic. So she slowed down to let the woman in. Isn't that unique? The woman smiled and waved at her. When she got to the grocery store, she saw a parking space. And as she started pulling in, another car on the opposite side, coming from the opposite direction, also started pulling in to that same parking space. Dorothy saw that. She backed out and found another space. As they both got out of their cars, the driver of the other car said, I can't believe what you just did. Anyone else would have made me back out, and they would have taken that space. And Dorothy explained what she had heard on the radio about showing love. Well, the two women began talking, and Dorothy discovered that the woman had just moved into the area, and she hadn't made any friends, and she was looking for a church. So Dorothy invited her to come to her church. A strong friendship developed from a chance meeting. The church was able to minister to a new person and got a new member, all because of a small act of kindness and a chance meeting somebody turned into an opportunity. A chance encounter. That's what changed that woman's life, and her friendship grew. A chance encounter changed not only the boy's life, but 5,000 people. It's probably one of the most important parables in the gospel. A chance meeting. All because they put their small gifts into the hands of Jesus Christ. Doesn't have to be millions. Small gifts. Our challenge as individuals, our challenge as a church, is to bring our small gifts, our loaves, and our fishes, no matter how small that they may be, and put them in the hands of Jesus, who can make them grow and be productive. Our challenge is to look for those chances to be of help. It may be a purposeful event that we go to, or it may well be nothing more than a chance encounter. But if we are open to sharing, to share our love and our gifts, it will happen for us as individuals and as a congregation. And most importantly, for God. Amen.